Hi, this is Roke with Mostly Harmless, and we're looking at some of the changes coming up with the, I assume it's pronounced Cador, maybe it's Cador patch coming up soon. Lots of changes, exciting ones. This is certainly just something we've been testing a lot on the Mordred staging server there. It's got the newest build, it's being changed all the time, so everything we're talking about is subject to change. And Raven has started putting together a guide, just like Magic did for the armor guide, and also Elsa. And who's the other gentleman that started with an A? There's some great guides that are linked on the forums. We'll also link them on the YouTube videos here. This particular one is about the weapons in particular, like the warrior line of weapons, the sort of that to go with that on that bottom part of the Destiny board. Just to show you here, this is I'm running the giant hammer with the shield charge. The giant form, of course, is the ultimate. Q is an option, although it uses a fair bit of mana for compared to the other abilities if you're going to keep spamming it, though it does some good damage. Loving the electric field, and because the electric field and the giant form are on your body, they actually work even through a smoke bomb. So trying that combo, it seems powerful at first. It's got a nice wombo combo possibility that you can channel some other things down onto these people that are slowed. However, it's a minute cooldown on that smoke bomb, so you won't be using it again for a while. And then on the boots, I've tried the shield charge that would allow me to get back to allies. So I'm playing like I'm a heavy, but I'm actually in medium there. You can see that electric field there. Someone else spams it on me. We're doing some nice damage to these people. We're raining down fire, and then of course the enemies are doing the same thing. They're trying their wombo combos. So certainly some neat abilities there, but what you want to see is the rest of, especially if you haven't been playing recently, the guide that Raven's put together here. The presentation works decently, but not for all the slides, so I'm just going to show it to you in this basic form here. So this is Raven's guide here. Of course, you know about the light, medium, and heavy armor changes. We've talked about that already. Scholar, Cleric, and Mage. And Raven's done a good job in testing that. He's using Tier 6, Tier 5.2, and Tier 4.3. So this is your uncommon. These are your rare materials to make those. And what that does, of course, is gives a similar power level so that you're getting the same an accurate test. But the big change for some of the newest stuff is that the one-handed weapons. So let's look here on the blades here. We can do it on this one. Why is that not working? There we go. Broadsword, claymore, glaive. The one-handed weapons, no matter what they are, to make up for the fact, and we kind of knew this going in, we were like, okay, in summer they had offhands that had abilities. They get rid of that to try and balance the game easier, which made sense. But then that meant that the one-handed weapons with the offhand were kind of not generally as good as the two-handed weapons. They are working on that now, and the one-handed weapons have got a power increase. So the lowest level of one-handed weapons have up to a plus 18% increase was the last I heard. And that is to make up for the fact that the offhand is not quite so powerful until it gets to a higher level. It basically means that some of these one-handed weapons with the offhand can do almost as much damage as a similar power level two-handed weapon. So basically, they're useful, and that's what you want. You've got choices. The sword, claymore, and glaive, not a lot in the way of changes there. There are on the slot 1 and 2 the same skills throughout each of these abilities. So you can see here that the heroic strike doing damage to one person, 3-second cooldown, so nice and quick, and increase your move speed. And these are going to be bigger abilities now. They weren't as big before. Now it becomes bigger because there's less mobility in the game from other items. The cleave that can do damage to people around, but it costs more energy, of course, so you're going to run out of energy quicker. The interrupt, always a useful skill when you're getting on that healer or a damage dealer in the back line that's trying to cast stuff. The hamstring, again, another very useful ability. I think the sword is going to grow into more popularity now because you're going to need these long slows, even the 14 seconds, even with the cooldown reduction that the person's going to have, the CC reduction. That's still going to be maybe a 6-second slow on a lot of people. That's a big slow. That's going to do some damage. Taunt, of course, useful for PvE. And Charged Blade, I have not used as much. I'm wondering if it could be useful with a medium chest piece that increases your attack rate as well. Let me know if you figure that out as to what the best use for that ability is. Not something I've used yet. The deep cuts, 20% chance. 92 per second for 4 seconds. Again, that's a nice damage. And then, of course, more slow chances. Again, especially if you're increasing your attack rate, you're going to get some slow on those people and be able to keep slowing them just with your auto attacks. And I don't even know if the CC reduction applies to that. Unique abilities for each of the swords. There is the option on the one-handed sword to pick between the Mighty Blow, so similar to the Mighty Swing, that this deals damage to a single opponent, this deals damage to multiple opponents. The more times you stack up your heroic charge from the heroic strikes and stuff, the higher the damage you're going to get there. Cooldown's only 10 seconds on the one affecting one person, while this one's 15 seconds if it's affecting multiple people. So that makes sense. Iron Will, again, few move speeds in the game, so this is going to make somebody potentially able to stick to you like glue if they can move that fast, and more tanky. 30-second cooldown though on that, 20 seconds on this one. This one is just that charge into everybody, whirl around, and do some damage while increasing your resist and stuff. And it's significant the way it stacks up. So big energy cost though. Fling. Just fun. There's nothing quite like taking that healer in the back line or somebody else that's trying to be in the back cursed or whatever and tossing them right behind you. So, and oh, good. My picture's not quite in the way as much. Damn it, I forgot about that again. Okay, so let's go through some of these other ones quickly because the Battle Axe, Great Axe, and Scythe has not changed much, but what you are going to want to see is the crossbow in just a second here, and also the hammers and mace and how they've changed. So these are still the same, nothing much to say here. Just want to highlight what you would all probably know, of course, the heroic strike on the axe, while the rending strike on the axe can provide the possibility on the one-handed axe to give you a heal, and on other items like the scythe, the ability to reduce people's healing and stuff. The heroic strike has just got such a short cooldown that it's often favored. Low energy costs, short cooldown, just spamming that ability and hurting people. The adrenaline boost, not used as much at the moment. However, with again that leather chest piece that also increases your attack rate, might be a viable combination. It's got a short cooldown and relatively low energy cost, but it's hard to beat the heavy smash with its incredible damage and the fact that it reduces all the resistances for 8 seconds. You start with that, then you start queuing them with your heroic strike. I don't know if I'm going to switch to the adrenaline boost, but if you get a nice combination for that, let me know. Mischievousness, I have not used enough, so if you have found it to be useful and that it does actually do some sustain, let me know. I would have assumed you'd need like maybe 20% before you'd start picking that. Vampiric Strike, in one-on-one combat with the rending, I have found that the axe and shield is just a beast, and I'd be curious to see what others have found there. Whirlwind, again, I haven't used the claymore quite as, or sorry, the axe quite as much, but you see this in PvP all the time. In all the GVGs, there's someone wielding this, charging in, and doing lots of damage to everybody, especially since it increases your move speed. And then, of course, the scythe, Ponder from Undead Lords, he's really good with that scythe and calling targets and stuff and moving around, and I like watching his videos there. So, and that can of course spread if you've got the other ability there, but most people don't run that. Let's move on to Raven's look at the mace, heavy mace, and flail. I love the mace. If you've seen any of our PvP videos, I always end up just switching right into that and charging in, and doesn't give you much chance to call targets except for who to work on eventually. But you get in there and you can do some damage. It's quite tanky. It's my favorite tanking weapon for PvE. And now, because it was so hard to level when I leveled it, they've added the heavy cleave. So this and the hammer both get this heavy cleave. It's a 1 second cast. It's a huge, I mean, they have to be held there. For PvE, that's awesome. For PvP, it's exactly what you think. And someone linked a video for us recently about power versus skill. I thought it was great because it was talking about how there's these cool abilities like Heavy Cleave that are just awesome. They are one-hit wonders. They do lots of damage, but the reality is that once you get more skilled, you're not going to get hit by Meteor. You're not going to get hit by Heavy Cleave. You're going to be dodging out of all those things because they're just too long of a cast. So cool skills, but there's better ones that are instants that you're going to use more often, but these will make you feel good in game while you're playing and while you're leveling up. Tons of damage. if you could hold them there long enough. So the taunt is still, of course, a necessity if you're doing some big time bosses. Threatening Strike will do most of your PvE and is the better PvE skill if you just need one taunt in my mind, but this is what you need for some of the bosses. Interrupt, of course, is clutch for PvE, especially too, and then the snare charge I love for PvP. It's again, there aren't many routes in the game left, so that is one of them. It's a shorter cooldown, but it'll do some. It'll get you that nice 9-meter charge in. The increased defense chance is great, and of course the threat generation for PvE. And let's look at the hammer. So, oh, did I get to the unique abilities? I guess we didn't get, oh yeah, we didn't get to these. So, Silencing Strike on the tier 6, 13-second silence. So it's a longer silence for an individual at that same power level as the AoE silence. This I love for PvP, but this cooldown at 20 seconds, understandable given the length of the silence that it's going to be that long, but that 13 seconds really becomes about a 6-second silence on a lot of people. Certainly very long, but I'll take my 4.5 instant AoE silence any day of the week. It's a lower energy cost, lower cooldown. It's just unfortunately a no-brainer between the two of these. This I might get 2 people with. That's 8 seconds of silence compared to 6 on one person here. Though it is damage at the same time. I hadn't thought about that. This is damage at the same time, so you could certainly mess people up with that. But I just find the cooldown a bit long for me to use it. But maybe with the changes to the one-handed, doing more damage, maybe it's worthwhile now. If you've tried that out and are finding that the one-handed mace is better now, I hadn't thought about that. Maybe with the damage and the changes to the one-handed, that is better. Now the root prison is a AOE. I think it was about 5 meters, but it almost looked like 4 the other day when I used it in the test server. Large energy cost, but that's fine. But it's a channeled ability, so you could be stunned or knocked or something. You can't do anything else. So before you could root somebody and then you could start striking and doing some other stuff, silencing, whatever. Now you can't. So, however, the root prison before was about a 4-second root with cooldown reduction. It was like 1 3/4 because of their capes and stuff. So it didn't last very long. This is a 4-second channel, so you'll hold them there for 4 seconds. That could be long enough to get a quick casting meteor off if you have the right synergy and stuff. So there might be some possibilities there, or maybe to get a silence off with some daggers. If you get some nice combos with that, let me know. We'd like to try some different things. We're at the early beta stages, so it's not a deal breaker as to whether or not someone's going to win the game. It's beta. Let's figure the game out and make it better. Powerful strikes. This sounds good. Each of your 5 auto attacks will do the knockback. And let me know if you've figured this out yet, but it seemed like with the diminishing returns on CC that only the first 3 of those knockbacks worked, and then the next 2 didn't work very well or weren't long enough. If that's been fixed, I'm certainly very curious to know that as well. Because that ability seems like it should have some potential, but with the CC reduction, it just wasn't doing the tricks. So, and hard to aim them in the right area. So it wasn't being picked very much. So nice that they've got another alternative for that. Let's get into the hammer here. Hammer, pole hammer, and great hammer. I think this is going to be more popular in the future. I think it's really neat the way it's got a nice, very quick, like 3-second cooldown slow is potentially very useful on any of these. The energy cost is, you can certainly consume it quickly if you use it too much. The Threatening Strike for PvE, again, like the Mace, one of my favorite PvE weapons. Stalling Slam, I haven't found a good use for this. Let me know. It's everything taking longer to finish for 1 second. It just didn't seem to be much of a difference to their cooldowns. It seemed like it added a second to their cooldowns, not what I expected it to add, which was sort of like the opposite of meditation. I thought it might add something, but again, if you know how it's supposed to be used, Let's share it with people and get it tested and get it working. The new heavy cleave has been added. I've already talked about that for the mace. The taunt, of course, still useful. Slowing charge, one of my favorites because it's an AOE slow and charge, and so interesting because the effect applies, and then you can draw a smoke bomb. They're now unable to use. You've silenced an area of people, and now they can't use their skills. So nice potential wombo combo there. Slow poison, of course, is the same as with the sword. So let's move down, and of course the threat. Earth Shatter. This was improved. Maybe it was Groundbreaker. The stun for this looks 7.3 seconds. So instead of a silence, you got this line stun, and people take damage. It's a bigger energy cost, but it's a nice short cooldown, and I think it's competitive with the Mace silence. That you're only talking about a second and a half difference. There's just a bit of a wind up, so that's why I find the E on the Mace, the silence works every single time. You just position yourself E, it's instant. The Groundbreaker, I was fighting. Sinister. Sinister was fighting the other day, and I had a bow, and he had that, and it was just hard for him to get that off. I could dodge out of the way. I could sort of see a little bit of a wind up and move out of the way. So I think it's good, but I'm not sure if it's quick enough to make it the same as the silence on the mace. Giant steps is just fun. You look impressive. You just grow really big. You increase your armor and resist, so it's another tanky type weapon and stuff that like it's as good as Stone Skin in terms of improving things, and it improves your attack damage, which generates more threats, so that's good for PvE. And then slowing everybody around, and you don't move much slower anymore. So it's again, with all the mobility changes to the game, this is going to be a good skill in the future. The biggest change, though, is the crossbow. Now the crossbow. They just changed the auto fire, so that they dropped this. Before it was about 15 hits, and that was perfect when you paired it up with the Fury. No, what was the chest that gave the heals with every hit? So we'd set it to the developers that it was like, wow, this is awesome. It's OP with this healing buff. Because you could just channel it and you would heal yourself up 650 health just like that in no time at all. So you had a lot of sustain. It's a long range. It is a channeled skill though. So like all channeled skills, it has its problems for PvP potentially depending on your positioning. The knockback shot, there's a little bit of a wind up with that 1 second cast. So it's hard to do in PvP. It's not as good as the frost shot on the bows and stuff, but it has some potential. Excuse me. But the caltrops change is huge. You shoot this into the ground. It's got a 4 second cooldown. With cooldown reduction, you could get it down to 3 seconds, and you can be putting these all over the place. They last about 10 seconds, and while they don't slow as much anymore, 22% instead of that 90% slow, they're now useful. You could basically charge in, fire it on your target, you've slowed them down, or you can set up a minefield in front of you. So big change here, and well worth testing and trying out. You can get a potential attack speed boost. I haven't used that much one. I've really liked the longer range. Having a 13-meter range on a skill is just awesome. Look at this. These have been changed, like the cast time for exploding shot. I don't think that was changed, but what was changed here was that instead of taking 5 seconds for this bomb to go off, dealing 556, it was just that much less. I think it's down to 2 seconds, so there is a chance that it's going to do some additional damage. Sweeping Bolt was always popular. They lowered the damage on that, but it's still got that awesome range. That cooldown of 25 seconds actually looks a little bit lower. I thought it was about 30 before, so that might be good. And then Snipe Shot. They changed the range on this from, I think it was 11 meters before, to 15. This, like the Fire Staff Meteor, is one of those items, because the PvE range is about 9 meters to aggro, you can cast this on somebody and one-shot them from a distance, making your PvE experience pretty simple in some of your groups, making for a neat pulling mechanic, especially where it does huge damage. It'll just destroy somebody every 15 seconds. So really easy on PvE. But I think there's important points to note here that in PvP, it was like, oh yeah, this will be good. 3 second cast time where you see this line between you and the person. You see the crossbow dip just before it does the fire. So people in the changed way of doing things, can use the dodge mechanic on the boots or the block on the helmet or various things to get away from that. So powerful looking skill, and for that reason good in PvE against mobs that don't. It's like the overpower um, the cleave. I mean the heavy cleave on some of the items, that it does a huge amount of potential damage. But unless you're in PvE or unless you're in fighting the worst person in the world, they're probably going to be able to knock you out, stun you, do some damage, plant even a curse bomb or something on you first, and then dodge your 3-second cast time skill. So great skills. It could change the mechanics in PvP as well. It might be that this becomes a bit too powerful if enough people are doing it and not interrupted and don't have the blocks. But I think it'll be okay. I think once you start, though, these people can run almost to the edge of the screen and you can still cap them. So, and blink and teleport does not affect it. You blink, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll just blink out of that. It did a delayed teleport when someone started casting, appeared somewhere else, and the bolt still came to me over where it was. So don't think for a second that that's going to save you. I haven't tried it with a smoke bomb as a defense to see if that'll save me from it. Let me know if you do figure that out. So that's it for sort of the fighter line of weapons. I'm sure Raven's going to put more of these together, and I'll link on the YouTube site his weapon guide on the Albion forums. Again, Elsa's done some good work on this, and I want to say Atkin, but it's not Atkin. What is his name? He's got some great stats and spreadsheet stuff too. So we'll get his linked there though on the forums, and I can apologize to him there. Thanks to our members for putting stuff together to share with the community and to help make the game better. This is Rook with Mostly Harmless, and we'll see you out on the battlefield. Even put the shirt on today.